Welcome to Mitchell Hamlin CPD's Professional Development video series. Today we are pleased to be able to talk to you about the art of effective cover letter drafting. The cover letter is an important part of the application that you will submit to employers. In law school, we teach you how to think like a lawyer, write like a lawyer, analyze, negotiate, and all of those lawyerly things. And we don't focus a lot on how you market yourself effectively to employers or even clients down the line. So today we have put together a workshop to help you come up with a framework for how to approach cover letter drafting, the important pieces of the cover letter, and how you begin the process of putting cover letters together. So my name is Kari Jensen Thomas. I'm a senior career advisor in the office, and I graduated from William Mitchell in 1995. I have devoted my career to coaching, training, teaching, guiding, mentoring, and recruiting lawyers in what we call an alternative legal career or JD Advantage career. And I am just pleased to be working with students on all aspects of their career exploration and helping them as they move toward their profession. Sara.
Hey. Well, my name is Sara Westerberg. I am a career advisor at Mitchell Hamlin. I'm also a graduate of Mitchell Hamlin 2022, so I was one of the COVID classes. We hung in there. I am a relatively recent graduate, so after graduating, I practiced mostly family law in Greater Minnesota in a small firm context. So I relatively recently did the job application, the interview process. I went through that. I know the weight and the time that it takes to do all of those applications, the research, the review, everything. And my goal with working with our students is to provide you with the tools and resources to make that process as seamless as possible. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly what employers are looking for in cover letters, how to format your cover letter, and the common mistakes that students make when drafting their cover letters. I'll turn it back to Kari.
Great. So as I was recruiting for a large law firm here in Minnesota, I had the, privilege of reviewing probably close to or over 1,000 cover letters in the time that I was in that recruiting position. And some people think that cover letters are required but are not actually read, and that is false. I can't speak for other firms, but our firm, we really viewed that cover letter as the first example of the writing abilities of that student. And it also tells a story about who they are, about their experience, and their genuine interest in the position as well. So the purpose of a cover letter, obviously, is to introduce yourself. It demonstrates your knowledge that you have about the position and how your direct experience correlates to what the requirements are or what the expectations are. It also can connect you to a geographic area. If your resume reads Minnesota, but you are interested in a California position, the cover letter is the place that you are able to tell them about that interest. And there's also opportunity if there's a gap in your employment or if there's something else that you'd like the employer to know that isn't necessarily obvious in your resume, the cover letter is also a place for that. The biggest thing that a cover letter does is showcases your fit, showcases the experience that you have, and why you would be the best candidate for that experience or that position. And we're going to go into how you do that as we move forward today. And as I mentioned, it is an effective screening tool. So you need to take it seriously. You need to put time and effort into crafting a very effective cover letter. So I'm going to turn it over to Sara to talk about the layout of a cover letter.
Yeah, thank you. So essentially, with a cover letter, you have a lot of information to portray to an employer, and the format in which you do so can save you a lot of time if you kind of template it out. So we have 6 components that go into a cover letter. We're going to break them all down individually, but just to start, the 6 components or pieces, you have your own address block and the date. You also have the employer's address block and a salutation of some sort, dear so-and-so, for example. Then you start getting into your core paragraphs. So you got your introductory paragraph, the 2 body paragraphs, which we'll go into in some depth, and then your conclusion, which will be your shortest paragraph. And then finally your salutation. So we'll dive into each piece in greater detail, starting with that initial address block, which I think you'll take over.
Yeah. So the address block should mirror what is on the top of your resume. Make sure that it's consistent. Those documents could be, not in the same place for the employer, and you want to make sure that they can match up the 2 documents rather easily. So the same header would include your full name. You don't have to include a middle name. If you have another degree, want to indicate that you have a, MD or an MBA, you are welcome to put that on the header block as well. You can include, or you want to include your address, but if you're not comfortable including your mailing address, be sure to include a city and a state. As I mentioned earlier, you want to show connection to a particular geographic area, or just let the employer know where you are currently located. You'll want to include the phone number that you will use, most likely a cell phone number, and then a full email address as well. You can hyperlink to a LinkedIn page, your own profile, if you'd like. Just make sure it's not the entire URL listed on that header, and that you make it a shortened, LinkedIn and just the words, and then hyperlink your page to that. Next will come the date. You're listing the date you're drafting the letter or submitting the application. And so make sure that you've got it in the month, day, and then year format. Next comes the employer's address block and the salutation. So you want to address the cover letter to an actual person, if at all possible. So researching, hopefully the job posting will have the correct person to submit the cover letter to, but doing some research, typically the main recruiter at most law firms will be listed online. It might be a little bit tougher for government entities or corporations to find the actual person. So if you've done your due diligence and cannot find the name of the actual hiring contact, it's okay to address it to the head of a department or a unit. Really, most places have a hiring committee, or you can say Dear Human Resources or Dear Hiring Committee. So for an address, if it's listed in the job posting, obviously you're going to want to include it. If you can research it pretty readily on the internet, you can include that as well. Because places have multiple offices, it's, most letters these days, you don't have to have the actual mailing address, and especially because they are being sent electronically or uploaded to a recruiting website. But you can always use nelpdirectory.com, and like I said, Google search would find some information for you as well. In terms of the salutation, as I mentioned above, if you're giving it or sending it to the hiring committee or human resources, Dear Hiring Committee, Dear Human Resources. If it's a person, you can be more formal and say, Dear Miss Johnson, Dear Director, if you know the title of the person, Director Johnson, or write out the recipient's entire name, Dear Miss, Mary Johnson. So if you don't want to assume, Miss, Mr., if that might not be readily available as well, you can spell out the entire name. So that's the employer address and the salutation. So let's jump into the body of the letter. The introductory paragraph is where you want to state the position that you're applying for. If you were referred to the position by someone in the organization or someone that you want to make that connection in the first paragraph. You can also say that where you found the position. So if it was posted on 1220 here at Mitchell Hamlin or posted on Indeed or LinkedIn, you can indicate that as well. And if you don't have someone that's referred you to the position, obviously you don't have to include that. But this first paragraph is your opportunity to really grab their attention. You want to make yourself memorable, and you can always include, you don't want it to be long, but you could include, my background as a patent agent, or I believe my background as a patent agent makes me a great candidate for this position. So trying in a way to really grab and introduce them into why you are the ideal for that position is really a good idea in this introductory paragraph. I'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
All right. Well, getting into kind of your core body paragraphs, there's two key questions that need to be answered. The first is, why did you choose this employer? You want to show them that in that first core paragraph after your introduction, of course. And with that, you want to show them why you understand their mission, their practice, what makes them different from maybe a competitor firm, another county position, whatever the case might be for this specific employer. And it's important to note that it's employer specific. This is where cover letters can be the bane of some people's existence, because there is a component that needs to be adjusted each go around, each application, each job posting. That being said, the goal is to show genuine interest. So the employer knows that you want to work for this employer, you want this position, and having a template ready using these resources that we have available, that's what's going to set you up for the most success, so that you are not taking hours upon hours to draft a single cover letter. With the second paragraph, that's where you get to brag about yourself. You get to, and I know that's hard for some law students, it was hard for me. The second paragraph is why the employer should hire you. It's what sets you apart from other candidates. That could be skills, past experience, interest in a certain practice area, whatever the case might be. This is where you get to brag about maybe your past experience, your current coursework, knowing what makes you special and what makes you stand out. This is also a great place, as Kari said, to note anything from your resume that might be worth explaining before an interview stage. There's really not major changes that will happen to this section, but you might see some minor changes throughout as you apply to different job positions. So finally, your last paragraph is going to be your conclusion. So your conclusion paragraph and your salutation will likely be your shortest paragraph. This is where you get to restate the position. You get to thank the employer for their time, their consideration, and then kind of close everything out with a clean and simple salutation, sincerely, best, all of those things. Include your signature, if that's a physical signature or an electronic signature, and then your full name at the bottom that matches the top of your header with your address block.
Great. So as we wrap up, we want to talk about some of the common cover letter mistakes that happen, to just make sure that you're thinking through what to avoid as you are crafting a really great cover letter. First, restating your resume. You do not need to regurgitate everything on your resume in a cover letter. And in fact, you want to avoid that. You want them to have enough information that intrigues them and wants them to take if they haven't quickly reviewed the resume, take an even closer look at your experience. So avoid restating your resume. You want to demonstrate that genuine interest. You want to connect to their needs. You want to, like I said, get them excited to learn a little bit more about you and dig deeper into that resume. Try to avoid focusing on what the employer can do for you and shifting that focus, like Sara said, to more, what can I bring to the table? What can I bring to the organization? So framing that value that you have, and instead of stating out, I want this and I hope to do this and I would like to experience this at the law firm, you really avoid that and wait for the interview to be able to do that. And instead, be proactive, be brave, and don't be afraid to brag a little bit about what your intention, what your interest is, and what you bring to the table. Try not to lack confidence in the way that you phrase things. Sometimes people will use weaker language. They may make, kind of an apologetic tone. They could say, I wish I had done this, or any kind of underselling of your achievements just really shouldn't happen in a cover letter. You, like I said, you need to be bold, you need to be brave, and you need to be confident in what your experience brings to that particular employer. Also, failing to tailor the letter to the employer, you want to make sure that they understand that you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, you understand what the position entails, and you know a little bit about the employer as well. And then don't ignore any kind of ties you have to the firm, local ties, any connections you might have. That's just really important for the firm to know as they make decisions in the selection process. And then lastly, avoid using AI and using AI word for word in a cover letter. Employers are savvy. They know when the writing seems a little bit inauthentic, it seems a little robotic, and they'll know if you have generated this cover letter, strictly using AI. Now, while you can run it through AI to see if it's grammatically correct, it really flows well, like I said, don't copy exactly what you see on Claude or Chat GPT. Sarah?
Yeah. I like to think of AI as a tool, not a crutch. So that's how I utilize AI, because I use it day to day. But it can be a great resource. It just doesn't replace the human being. So where do you start? There's a lot of information. It's a lot to take in. Cover letters are not fun. Most people don't enjoy them. So where do you start with all of this information? First, you want to reflect on what you want to be portraying about yourself. What do you want to be showing the market? And that's essentially building your brand as a professional. That is a step that I think a lot of law students, a lot of legal professionals skip initially. But knowing who you are and what you want to portray, that's how you know what needs to go into your cover letter. From there, just start writing. Write each paragraph individually. Jot things down. You can make edits later. It does not need to be perfect the first go around. And then after you have maybe a full cover letter written, review, revise, and make it so that it flows. It's a coherent and cohesive cover letter. Then once you have a solid cover letter template, the trick is completing the research. It's looking into the individual employer, the job posting that you're looking at, and saying, well, these are the values that they're looking for. This is the work that they're applying. All of those things. That's what I need to be writing about in my cover letter. How do I apply myself to what they're looking for? And then finally, now that you have the framework for what most candidates are unaware of, don't wait until the last minute to draft your cover letters. I know it's tempting, but it will make cover letters less enjoyable. It will make them all the more painful if you wait until the last minute. Start today by putting together your template, review CPD resources, and then also work with your career advisor. If you work with your career advisor, they can provide you with tips, tricks. If you're curious about how do I fit this into my core body paragraphs, use them as a tool, as a resource in doing so. So your cover letter is one of many important pieces to your application, but be sure to watch the rest of our videos. We have videos on resumes, networking, interviewing. All of this is going to shape your application and your application process as you go through and getting the job that you're looking for. And I think that's everything.
Yeah, great. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.